that noise is just because I'm recording our notes for our friends who miss it. Okay, so we're on page 60, circumference of a circle. So we're going to start very basic with the parts of a circle. I feel like from my other classes, depending on who your teacher was last year, some of you know stuff about circles and some of you don't. If you don't, it's not your fault, because who knew that we were going to have a pandemic and be out? So if you don't know any of this, that's okay. All right, so put a point in the middle and draw a line out. Does anybody know what that point is called that starts in the center and it goes all the way out? It starts with an R. And again, if you don't know, it's okay. Radius. A radius radiates out. Starts in the center and it radiates out. Okay? So radius. And that's going to be our first blank. Radius goes from the center to the edge. From the center to the edge. Do you have a question?
No,
just keeps on meeting. And you can close the meet if you want. You don't have to be on the meet if you don't want to. Okay. So a radius starts in the center and it can go up, down, side. Okay. A radius goes anywhere from the center out. Okay. That's a radius. Now there's also a line that goes all the way across. This is called the diameter. Okay. It goes all the way across. Up and down, side to side, all the way across. It makes a straight line, but it goes through the center. Diameter. Okay, it passes through the center. This is very, very important. And it has 2 endpoints. So it ends on the circle. Okay. If it was a line like this, where it doesn't go through the center, that's not a diameter. That's called a chord, but you don't need to know that in 7th grade. Okay? It has to go through the center, though. It has to touch the center. And then finally, the distance around a circle is called circumference. If you want to know how to spell it, it's the title of this page right here. Circumference, and it's around. And circumference is the distance around the outside, around the outside edge. So some people struggle to remember the difference between radius and diameter. Circumference is the easy one because it's the long word and it's around the outside. But when you were learning how to write, they gave you this grid paper. And if I was going to write the word radius, radius goes halfway up the line, right? The R goes halfway up. So that reminds you, oh yeah, radius is half. Okay. The diameter, if I was going to make a D, goes the whole way. So this is just a kind of silly way to remember. Radius is half, diameter is whole. So if radius is half, this is half, how do I get the diameter if I know the radius?
You add the whole thing.
Okay, so if this is 5, what do you think this is? If this is 5, this is 5, so the diameter would be 10. So you multiply by 2. So radius to diameter is times 2. Okay. Now if I'm going the other way and I tell you the whole thing is 2, how do you think I get the radius? Divide by 2. Good. Okay. So if you know the radius, you times it by 2. If you know the diameter, you divide by 2. Okay. Now we're going to talk about circumference also, but I'm going to have you watch a video because if you were here in person, I would give everybody circles, I would give everybody string, you would measure, and I would want you to figure out the relationship with the circumference. But we can't do that. And there were no quality videos on YouTube that were easy to understand. So I made a video with Miss Kessler, and it is in. All right. Hopefully from your video, you didn't think it was too cheesy, too corny. You kind of got the picture of what we were doing. And we were trying to prove to you that there are 3 diameters in a circumference, okay? Both of those shapes that Ms. Kessler and I did when we compared circumference to diameter, we got 3, okay? So with your calculator, down here at the bottom, it says 43.96 divided by 14. What do you get when you divide that?
You get
3.14, okay? The next one, you're dividing circumference over diameter. So divide 56.52 by 18. And what do you get? Yes, you get 3.14. My people I see who are participating in the chat, thank you, okay? Notice on all of these, when I divided, I got 3.14 every single time. Do you think these tires are the same? A toddler bike, a car, and a dump truck? No. That's like comparing this thin marker to this big marker to this straw to this lid. They're all different size circles, but when I compare the circumference to the diameter, every single circle in America is 3.14. Now on the video, they weren't exactly 3.14, but that's because we didn't measure exactly, okay? And when you're in 8th grade, you'll be using these calculators, and there's a pi button. And pi is actually 3.1415. It's actually a number that never, ever, ever, ever ends. So we just round, or we estimate to be 3.14. Okay? So on the next page, up top real quick. How many diameters fit into a circumference in Miss Kessler's video where she was measuring it?
No one.
How many diameters went around the circle? And if you remember the video where Miss Kessler was hula hooping, there were 3 diameters, okay? So there are 3 diameters in a circumference. And on my hula hoop, how many radiuses were there? 6. Okay? So there are 6 radiuses in a circumference and 3 diameters in a circumference. And again, if you know the numbers going forward, going backward, you're just doing the opposite operation. Divide by 3 or divide by 6. Okay, remember your tests and stuff are open notes, so make sure you have this written down if you don't remember it. Okay, if you think you might forget it, have all this written down so that you don't forget it. Okay. All right, now turn to the next page. At the top, it wants to know, what did we realize when we divided all these? We realized that they all equaled 3.14, which we know is pi. Okay, this is the pi symbol. Now, the good thing is, if for some reason we do end up taking STAR test or whatever, and it's in May, you're not going to have to remember it, because on the formula chart, it says additional information. Pi is 3.14. Okay? If you like fractions, you can also do it as 22 over 7, but I don't particularly want a fraction. So it's just this symbol, pi. Okay? Pi is 3.14 or 22 over 7. Okay? Or you can just use 3 and look at your answer and kind of guess an answer close to it if it's a multiple choice. Okay? All right. So now we're going to use that to know our formulas. Again, you don't have to have these memorized. Okay, circumference formulas, 2 pi r or pi d. Okay, so our formulas are 2 pi r or pi d, or pi is 3.14. when do you think I would use that first formula? What letters do you see? It's 2 pi what? R. What do y'all think the R stands for? Yeah, we're not talking pirate talk. It means radius. So this R means radius. So if I have the radius, I have to multiply it by 2. And when I'm given the diameter, I can just use this formula. Okay. If I multiply the radius by 2, I get the diameter. So that's why there's 2 formulas, because they're kind of the same, but if you're given radius, you multiply it by 2. If you're given diameter, you just multiply it by the pi. Okay. So this is just like area or anything else where you have a formula. You just plug them in. So when we look at our picture, the first thing I have to ask is, what part of the circle did they give me? What part of the circle is this?
The radius.
And how did y'all know it was the radius?
Because it's the middle.
Yeah.
It goes halfway.
It only goes halfway. It goes to the middle. Okay. So since I have the radius, I'm going to use C equals 2 pi r. The next step says to plug in your numbers. So I'm bringing the 2 down. Instead of pi, I should plug in what? 3.14. Good. Okay, remember, anytime you see pi, it's 3.14. And then what's your radius?
6.
6. Now skip the in terms of pi, because we're going to talk about that last. Okay. So what is the circumference? When you solve that, what do you get? Go ahead and use your calculators while I take a quick drink. What do you get?
We divide that.
No, multiply.
Oh,
2 times 3.14 times 6.
37.68.
Okay, 37.68. The only thing I'm going to tell you is don't embarrass me with naked numbers. Put some clothes on your numbers. These are inches. Okay, don't turn in your numbers to me naked. Put some clothes on them. All right, so formula, plug in, multiply. That's it. Okay. The next one. What part of the circle did they give me? The diameter. So I'm going to use C equals pi d. What am I plugging in for pi? 3.14. And the diameter is 14. Okay, go ahead and multiply that for me. No naked numbers?
Inches.
Okay. 43 point what?
96.
96 centimeters. Okay. Again, all I had to do was multiply now.
Oh, I have a question.
Uh-huh.
If it's the diameter, is that when we do centimeters, but when it's the radius, when we do inches?
No, it's because this is inches, this is centimeters, this is meters. It's just the unit of whatever that is measured. Okay. And finally, the last one. What part of the circle did they give me?
The radius.
The radius. So I'm going to do 2 pi r. 2 times 3.14 times 3.5.
Is there, you put a decimal in between the 3 and the 1 4?
Yeah.
Or is it?
Yeah, it's 3.14. Yep. Okay. What did you get? Naked, naked, naked. 21.98.
Meters.
meters. Okay? 21.98 meters. So that's all you have to do. Write your formula, figure out if it's radius or diameter, plug it in, multiply. Okay? Let's look at a word problem. It says a Ferris wheel measures 40 meters from top to bottom. A cart travels one time around the Ferris wheel. How many meters will it travel? Okay, what do we know about a Ferris wheel?
It goes around.
Okay, and what shape is it? It goes around in a circle. It has these little carts, okay? It sits on this little thing, and it's like a ride. And it says from top to bottom is 40 meters. What part of this?
Can you move the camera a little bit because I can barely see? Thank you.
So what part of the circle is that if from top to bottom? Is that the radius, the diameter, or the circumference? It's the diameter. Okay, the diameter is 40 because it tells me from top to bottom. So that's the diameter. Okay. And I'm wanting to know how far around it goes, which is the circumference. So which formula should I use? C equals pi d. Okay, remember you're always going back to those same two formulas that are written at the very top. They're also right here. 2 pi r or pi d. These are the two formulas you're picking between. Okay, so pi equals
3.14.
Okay, and the diameter is 40. Okay, go ahead and multiply that.
$125.6 meters.
Very good. And you even put close on your numbers. I appreciate that. 125.6 meters. So that's the distance around the outside. That's the perimeter or the circumference of the circle. Okay? Pretty easy, right? You just got to figure out if you have the radius or the diameter, and then use your formula, plug it in, and solve it. Okay? Now, the last thing I want to do really quick is leave it in terms of pi. Every year on STAR, they like to give you a question in terms of pi. After 7th grade, they don't leave it in terms of pi anymore. So I'm just going to show you, but we're not going to spend a lot of time on it. Okay? In terms of pi means I leave pi in there. So I take my formula, 2 pi, and then instead of plugging in pi, I plug in the radius, which was 6. So now 2 times 6 is 12, and this is 12 pi. That's all you do. Instead of multiplying by 3.14, you just leave the pi symbol. Okay? On the next one, my diameter was 14, so it's just 14 pi. On the next one, it's 2 times pi times 3.5. Well, what's 3.5 times 2? 7 pi. That's it. Okay? So in terms of pi just means don't multiply by 3.14. Leave it there. On the DCA, there is one, but I'll probably give y'all a reminder on that day. Okay? Otherwise, I'm not going to test you leaving it in terms of pi, because I know that's not what you need for 8th grade. Okay? Everybody okay with this? All right. Last thing I want to write is those relationships real quick. So turn back to page 59. It's a blank page. And we're going to super quick recap these relationships. So write RDC. I'm going to show you how to do RDC without even using a formula. Okay, the formulas are there because sometimes questions are going to ask you about the formula. But we don't always need the formula. We just need to know that relationship. Okay, so if I told you the radius was 5, what is the diameter? How'd you get that?
10. The radius is half of the diameter.
Yeah, perfect. Radius is half, so I'd times 2. Okay? If I told you that the diameter was 20, what's the radius?
10.
10. Okay? So you got to remember that relationship. 2, and then remember if it's multiply or divide. Okay? If the radius is 5, what's the circumference?
15.
30. How'd y'all get 30?
Because it's 10 times 3.
Yep. So this is times 6. Or you could have just done this times 3. Okay? So if the diameter is 20, what's the circumference? 60. Okay? All right. If I give you the diameter is 18, I want to know the radius. What's the radius? 9.
9.
And if the radius is 9, what's the circumference? How do you get from R to C?
You multiply by 6.
Which is?
You get an answer.
Good. 54. Okay. Now, if the circumference is 30, what is the, oh, sorry, not 30, I already did 30. If the circumference is 18, I want to know the radius. What's the radius?
It's 2. No. It's 3.
3. Yeah. Because how do you get from circumference and radius? 6. Remember, my hula hoop had 6. I was R. I had 6. And if the radius is 3, what's the diameter?
6.
6. Yeah, because it's twice, remember?
Oh.
And then last one, if the circumference is 90, what's the diameter?
30. How do you get the radius again if you're looking at the circumference? How do you divide?
Divide by 6, yep.
Alright.
Divide by 6. So what's the diameter?
30.
30. And if I know the diameter is 30, what's the radius? 15. Good. Okay. So if you can remember those relationships and make your RDC table, then maybe you don't need to use the formula. But if the answer has decimals, then you need to use the formula so you can do 3.14. Or you can just look at the answers and pick the one that's really close. Okay. So super quick summary. Radius. Radius is half of the diameter. And it's 1/6 the circumference. Okay. Diameter is 2 times radius and 1/3 circumference. And then circumference is the biggest one. Circumference is 6 times the radius and 3 times the diameter. Okay. Those are the relationships that we have talked about. Super important relationships that you have there at your disposal. You have your notes, so it should be easy to go back and look at them if you need. Okay. You have a quick, easy assignment in Schoology. We have 18 minutes of class. Your assignment is 10 questions, but they go super quick. Okay. Most of you will probably finish your assignment in Schoology. don't forget to do your Ed puzzle first if you have not done it, okay? I'm going to have you stay on the meet until you finish. If you finish, just put done. If you're not happy with your grade, you can redo it right after. You can also get help before you redo it, okay? So go ahead and get started. Finish Ed puzzle first. If you're finished with Ed puzzle, then you are working on your Schoology assignment. Okay, I am here for tutorials.